Hi, welcome to Raj Live. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the weekly status reports because especially whenever we are working on project management, right? So whenever we are working on project management in the field of IT, not only in the field of project management, of course, even though we work as a business analyst or so, providing a status report peak is essentially important. So whatever the status reports relating to the project and all everything is what we have to update. So for that, there are different templates which normally we follow. Organization to organization, templates will vary. It will not be the same all the time. But in regard to the report submission in reference to the status of the work, what team has covered, more or less the templates will be as follows, as what I was showing you. So wherein here we have to mention about the project name here because we have to update the name of the project. It's irrespective of technology, irrespective of the domain, whatever the project are we working on. So that project details has to be updated in here in reference to the project name. At the same time, for every project, because normally in the organizations there are multiple projects runs, not one project, because multiple projects we run in that particular development center sometimes, right? So in different clients, for different clients, different projects, right? For different clients, we have different accounts. So for every account, for every project, there will be a code number which we have to update it here. Followed by this, we need to update the name of the project manager, whoever is relating to the project, because as I told you, because if you take any development unit, this development unit consists of multiple accounts. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So different accounts will be there, right? So some account may be relating to banking client. It can be one more can be relating to insurance or healthcare. At the same time, retail clients, right? So different clients will be there. So those details has to be based on the client details and all everything, based on the project, whatever are we working on, the client project code will be updated. So whoever are relating to the project in reference to the project, what is that we have taken project name, the project manager name has to be updated over here. At the same time, we have to update the information relating to the date of status entry, like whatever the status of that particular work, what is that are we going to do for the project. So date has to be mentioned, on which date are we working on. The date has to be mentioned even. At the same time, we have to mention about the kind of period of coverage followed by projected date of completion. Because normally nowadays, there are a lot of changes happens in the requirements, which normally will be taken place where we have to update it subsequently. Which is a continuous process when we are working on the application development. So hence it is always important for us to update the details like project manager name, state of status inquiry, right? So period of coverage, followed by when the project approximately is trying to complete, right? So when this will be completed, either it can be maybe this can be based on the release also, right? So based upon the release, whatever are we planning and all. So projected date of project completion of the particular project or a particular release. So that information can be updated over here. Now, the next one about overall project status, that is what generally we do in the next level here, overall project status, followed by Is there any kind of roadblocks we have? Because while we are working on the project, there will be some roadblocks which team might encounter, which team might identify, right? So identify, that has to be updated, that has to be cleared, all that, right? So those roadblocks has to be updated subsequently. So due to the roadblocks or of any other reason, normally there are possibilities where some potential risks as well as delays might be taken place. This is maybe due to because of the roadblocks. It could be right. So it could be because of the roadblocks. These potential risks and delays might be taken place, followed by whatever the requirements or whatever the status of work which will be on track. So that has to be updated here. So for that, what we have to do, we need to write down the status. We need to write down the summary here, whatever the summary relating to that particular one, by keeping all these into account, right? So even project status, roadblocks, potential risk, delays, on track and all. So summary has to be updated subsequently. Followed by this milestones we have to update even, right? So milestones are also important because milestones depends on the dates, depends on the months and all that. These milestones will vary, right? And because next 2 months, what is that we have to complete? Or else next 3 months, what is that we are planning to complete all that. So these are all comes under the milestones part. So which normally will be mentioned over the milestone part. This is what it was. So it is not only about the summary, but it is also about milestones, which has to be updated subsequently. Followed by this, here are the project components. This project components is what we have to see, right? So what are the project components and all everything, that is what it was. The first component is about budget, right? So because for every project, there is some amount of budget which will be allocated. So wherein budget information has to be updated, wherein we need to mention about the kind of status of the particular budget, and followed by this owner of that budget, particular budget, who is the owner over here. And we need to update the notes about the status of the budget, because this can be one of the considerable factor which we have to be considered while we are working on it. Second, about resources. When we are talking about the resources and all, resources based upon the kind of status what we have, the kind of roadblocks what we have, or the kind of potential risk as well as delays which are on track. At the same time, we need to know about who are the resources working for the project. Followed by this, we must be knowing about the kind of new developments, followed by the new team members. Everything has to be updated over here. Next, we have to consider the timeline part. Timeline in reference to the project, what is that we have taken. These timelines may vary sometimes, depends on the requirement what we are working on. At the same time, we need to mention about the launch date, all that stuff. All these things we have to mention on the timelines, all that. And one more important element, which has to be focused when we are working on the project, especially about the scope, because identifying the right scope of the project will give a clarity over the completion of the work, what we have to be supposed to work on. So if you are not identified the right scope for the project, which is difficult for team to perform well, right? So what are the multiple roadblocks which we have identified so far? If there is any kind of roadblocks we have identified, or else whatever the kind of potential risk, because there is a possibility sometimes the scope deviation will be taken place, which normally we call it a scope creep. So sometimes new requirements were coming and added to the existing ones. Due to that, deviation of the scope will be taken place. So this is all something relating to the potential risk, followed by the kind of delays whichever is happening on track, which has to be updated subsequently in the scope of the project, right? So this is what generally we talk about scope of the project is all about. So once the scope of the project, here we need to mention about the kind of work which is to be accomplished. This work accomplishments and all everything vary, depends on the kind of task, what is that we have taken, what are the different tasks we have taken and all. So the task number followed by the description and who is won the task and what kind of information in reference to the reception work, what is the work we have accomplished so far, that has to be updated here. So not only this, we need to mention about the kind of risk and roadblocks, as I told you, like, because this risk may be of anything, right? It can be budget risk, it can be technical risk, it can be operational, it can be regulatory risk, and so on. So those risk details followed by the description and how are we going to fix the risk, right? So all this information has to be updated subsequently under risks and roadblocks. Next, any highlighted points which were there. So those highlighted key takeaways has to be updated here. That is also essentially needed. At the same time, whatever the upcoming work, right? So because if there is any work are we going to do, there may be some upcoming work which might be taken place sometimes, which we have to see. Whatever the upcoming work do we have all that, so that will be mentioned over here. Next about this is the overall project progress of the timeline, wherein you can see here. This is essentially important when we are working on project, especially being a senior business analyst who are acting as a role as a project manager, or maybe a person who is working as a business analyst has to know about this well in advance, right? So this is essentially important, where we need to mention about the details on the first one. In context to the details, whatever we have mentioned and all everything, that project start date followed by the date, whatever is required, it has to be mentioned. Next, we need to mention about the kind of milestone, which is something relating to the second one, followed by the milestone 3. But whenever we are working on the second milestone, we have to ensure whatever the current timeline position we have, which is something where it has to be connected with two different things. Because here, whenever we have taken these two, whenever we have taken this and as well as this, there are some roadblocks which might be a challenge for us to reach this milestone from here to here, right? So there is a possibility, right? So there are some difficulties which team may face. So that has to be updated subsequently under the milestones part, where we have to see the roadblock details and all, everything and all. Next, the third one, which is the, what is that we see, which is called the third milestone, as I told you, or subsequently fourth milestone. At the same time, fifth milestone, right? Even in the fourth and fifth milestone, if there is any roadblocks, whatever are identified, those roadblock details has to be mentioned, followed by the end date of the project event. So roadblocks are essentially common in any of the project when we are working on. So roadblocks are something which might be influencing the project progress, timelines, all that. So which has to be updated subsequently over the work, what is that we are performing here. So this is what generally, whenever we are working on the project progress and all everything, this is how generally these templates and all everything we use. Of course, for organization to organization, there are different templates. Of course, this is one of the template which I'll be showing you so that people will be knowing about the weekly project status report by updating the information under everything in this templates, all that, especially when we are following the traditional practices of application development. These templates and all everything are being used. So this is all about this video. If you have any questions in regard to this, if you have any queries as well as needs in reference to the business analysis or project management, etc., please reach out to the contact details, which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.